So imagine you borrow like $10,000 from a bank to start a business.
Okay.
Society generally tells you that you are taking a huge, terrifying risk.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, debt is scary.
Right. But if you look at that exact same scenario through the lens of a Wall Street analyst, taking out that bank loan is actually the cheapest, most mathematically conservative way to fund your company.
Yeah, it's completely wild.
And bringing in an investor, on the other hand, which feels safe, is actually the most expensive thing you could possibly do. So today, we are looking at the hidden logic behind counterintuitive choices exactly like that.
I love this topic because, we often assume high-level institutional finance is just like a totally different species of math.
Yeah.
But the frameworks used by professional analysts aren't magic. They are simply highly structured tools for making decisions about resources.
Well, welcome to the deep dive.
Okay.
For this one, we are pulling from notes on a program called Money Logic in Daily Life, which was originally hosted by Jeff and Pearl.
Right.
And the mission today is to extract 3 major concepts from the Chartered Financial Analyst, or CFA, curriculum. We're taking those frameworks and translating them into practical logic you can use to basically rule your own world.
And the best part is you don't need a background in corporate finance to apply this stuff.
Thank goodness.
Right. These concepts are fundamentally just about resource allocation. They help you evaluate if a choice is mathematically sound. And that's true whether you are steering a multinational corporation or, just deciding on a major household purchase.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the very first concept from our source material. NPV, or net present value.
Yes.
The source frames NPV as the ultimate worth it filter. Like it's the first hurdle any project or purchase has to clear.
Exactly. The central question NTV asks is simply whether the money you make or save in the future is genuinely worth more than the money you're spending today to get it.
Let's use the source material's coffee machine analogy to ground this because I think it helps a lot.
Oh, yeah, the espresso machine.
Yeah. So you are looking at a high-end espresso machine that costs $500 today.
Right.
That is your initial outlay.
Right.
You swipe your card, and that cash leaves your checking account immediately.
Gone. But you project that by making your coffee at home, you save like $5 a day for an entire year.
Wait, let me stop you there, though.
Okay.
Because if I save $5 a day for 365 days, my calculator says that is $1,825.
Yep.
$1,800 is a much bigger number than $500.
It definitely is.
So why do we need a complex corporate finance formula to tell us this is a good deal? I mean, isn't it just obvious?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism that prevents us from just doing simple addition.
Okay.
Our sources point to a foundational concept called the time value of money. Basically, $1 you receive a year from now is inherently worth less than $1 you hold in your hand today.
Is that just because of inflation eating away at the purchasing power?
Well, inflation is one factor, sure, but the real driver is opportunity cost.
Okay.
Think about it. If you have $5 in your pocket right now, you can deploy it. You can put it in an investment account, earn a return. That money can immediately start working for you.
Right.
But a promised $5 a month from now or a year from now, it has zero earning power today.
That makes sense.
And furthermore, there is the risk you never actually get it. The coffee machine might break.
Right, or your daily routine might change. You stop drinking coffee.
Exactly. The delay literally drains the value from those future savings.
So time literally equals money.
Literally. So the time value of money dictates that we have to mathematically discount those future $5 bills to find out what they're actually worth to you right now, today.
Like putting them on sale.
Yeah, you apply a discount rate to those future cash flows. And that gives you the present value part of net present value.
So you figure out the present value of all those future daily savings, and then you subtract your initial $500 outlay. You're finding the net difference.
Exactly. And the CFA standard from the text gives us a strict pass or fail grade on this. If that net present value is greater than 0, the answer is yes.
Just flat out yes.
Yes. The purchase mathematically adds value to your life or your enterprise.
But what if the math shakes out and the NPV is, say, negative $10? Because in daily life, we constantly rationalize stuff like that.
Oh, all the time.
Like I might say, well, the machine looks beautiful on my kitchen counter. Or, you know, it saves me having to talk to people at the cafe before I've had my caffeine.
Right, the convenience factor.
Right.
But a negative NPV means you walk away.
Just walk away.
Period. If you are applying corporate finance logic, There's absolutely no room for qualitative rationalization to override the math.
Wow.
If the present value of the future benefits does not exceed the current cost, the project destroys value. You do not buy the machine. It is a binary filter.
So it's ruthless.
Very.
Okay, so let's say your NPV calculation says, buy the coffee machine. The project clears the filter, but the machine still costs $500 today. If you don't have that cash sitting idle in a drawer somewhere, you have to source it.
Right.
Which brings us to the actual cost of acquiring capital.
Yes, because finding a worthwhile project is really only step one. You still need the capital to execute it. And capital always carries a price tag.
Always.
Which introduces the second major concept from our sources, WACC, the weighted average cost of capital.
Okay, let's strip away the acronym for a second. WACC is simply the average interest rate a company pays to use money.
That's it. Every time a business wants to build a new factory or hire a research team or launch a product line, they need funding.
Yeah.
WACC measures the blended cost of bringing that funding through the door.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The source material notes that companies essentially only pull this funding from two totally distinct buckets.
Right.
You have debt, which involves taking out loans or issuing bonds, and equity, which involves bringing in shareholders or investors.
Yeah, debt and equity are the two fundamental ingredients of corporate finance. Like everything is built on them.
Okay, but I have to genuinely challenge the text's assertion here because it feels completely backwards to how normal people operate.
How so?
Well, the source states that debt is cheaper, but riskier, while equity is expensive. Think about that for a second.
Okay.
If I take out a bank loan to fund my business, I am paying, say, an 8% interest rate every single year.
Yep, you have a monthly bill.
Right. But if I give my friend a 10% equity stake in exchange for cash, I pay $0 out of pocket today. There's no monthly payment.
No payment at all.
So how is the 8% loan mathematically cheaper than getting cash without a monthly bill?
I know, it sounds crazy, but that is the exact counterintuitive leap you have to make to think like a financial analyst.
Okay, help me make the leap.
Let's look at the mechanism behind debt first. The primary reason debt is considered cheaper is due to what the text calls tax shields.
Tax shields. Walk me through how a tax shield functions in an actual corporate environment.
Sure. So in business, the interest you pay on debt is generally a tax-deductible expense.
Oh.
Yeah. The government allows you to write off that interest payment before you even calculate the taxes you owe on your profits.
Wait, really?
Yes. So if your bank charges you an 8% interest rate, your actual out-of-pocket cost is significantly lower. It might be closer to like 5%.
Just because of the money you saved on your final tax bill.
Exactly. The tax code essentially subsidizes your borrowing.
Okay, so the system actively rewards you for taking on debt. But the text also labels debt as risky.
Right, and the risk lies in the unyielding nature of the obligation.
Meaning the bank wants their money.
A lender does not care if your new product launch failed or if a recession cut your sales in half. When that loan payment is due, you must pay it.
Or else.
Or else. If you miss a payment, the lender can force your company into bankruptcy. They can liquidate your assets.
Yikes.
Debt basically creates a rigid floor under your business operations. If revenue drops below that floor, the game is over.
So debt is cheap money, but it lacks any flexibility.
Zero flexibility.
Contrast that with equity. My friend gives me cash for a 10% stake in my company. There is no rigid floor.
Right. From a pure survival standpoint, equity is incredibly safe.
Because if my business has a terrible year and makes absolutely no profit, I don't owe my friend a monthly payment.
Nobody is forcing you into bankruptcy court.
Right.
But the problem is that the equity investors taking on all that risk, they know they only get paid if the company actually succeeds, and they are usually the last in line to get their money back if things go wrong.
So because they are taking on massive risk, they demand a massive return.
Exactly. They want a piece of the upside forever. They are not satisfied with a safe 5 or 8% return like a bank.
No?
An equity investor is looking for a 20, 30, or even 40% return on their money.
Wow.
So while you avoid a mandatory monthly bill, the long-term cost of giving away a chunk of your total enterprise value is astronomically higher than just paying back a static loan.
Okay, I think I've got it. Debt is like renting an appliance.
Okay, I like that.
It's cheap, it gets the job done, but if you miss a payment, they repossess it immediately.
Yeah.
But equity is like taking on a roommate.
Yes.
You do not have to pay them back, and they help cover the immediate costs. but you permanently give up half your house, and you have to split the value of the property when you eventually sell it.
That is an excellent way to visualize the trade-off. When you use equity, you surrender control and future value.
Which brings us directly back to WACC.
Right. The weighted average cost of capital takes the cost of your cheap but rigid debt and blends it with the cost of your safe but expensive equity.
Let's do a grounded mental math exercise so we can see how that weighting actually works in practice.
Okay. Imagine a business funded with a 60-40 split.
Okay.
60% of their money comes from debt that costs them 5% after the tax shield. The remaining 40% comes from equity investors who demand a 15% return. Your WACC is the exact proportional average of those two costs. In this scenario, doing the math, your WACC comes out to exactly 9%.
And the source notes call this blended 9% a hurdle rate.
Right. Think of a physical track and field hurdle set at exactly 9%. If your company decides to invest in a new project, that project has to generate a return that jumps completely over that hurdle.
What happens if the project generates an 8% return? Because, it's still technically profitable.
Well, if it generates 8%, but it costs you 9% to fund it, the business is bleeding value.
Oh.
You are paying more for the capital than the capital is generating for you. Over time, that dynamic will absolutely destroy the total value of your enterprise.
Wow. That connects us perfectly to the final concept from the deep dive sources.
Yes.
If WACC is the blended cost of your financial ingredients, how do you actually mix them together so your business thrives instead of collapsing?
And this is the discipline of capital structure. It is the deliberate proportion of debt and equity a company uses to finance itself.
The source notes introduce a really great recipe analogy here. You are trying to bake a cake, and you have to decide exactly how much of each ingredient to use.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, analyzing extreme recipes highlights why this is so difficult.
Okay.
Consider a hypothetical company that decides to fund itself with 95% debt and only 5% equity. They want all that cheap capital and those tax shields to keep their WACC as low as possible.
On paper, their hurdle rate would be incredibly low. They could approve almost any project.
True. But they have introduced a catastrophic amount of risk into the system.
Because of the rigid floor.
Yes. Because their mandatory loan payments are so massive, even a slight dip in their quarterly sales means they cannot cover their interest expense. They face immediate bankruptcy.
That's terrifying.
It is. The risk profile becomes so extreme that lenders will eventually panic and start charging them much higher interest rates. And equity investors will demand even higher returns to compensate for the danger.
Paradoxically, using too much of the cheap ingredient eventually makes all your ingredients more expensive.
The system basically turns toxic.
Right.
Now look at the opposite extreme. A company funded with 95% equity and almost no debt.
Well, they are incredibly safe. They have no monthly loan payments, so a recession won't force them into bankruptcy.
Safe, yes. But their WACC is sky high because equity is inherently expensive. Their hurdle rate is so high they can barely find any projects profitable enough to pursue.
So they stagnate.
Completely. And furthermore, they are giving away so much of their profit to investors that the original founders retain very little value. They survive economic downturns, but they have diluted their ownership to the point where they're practically just employees working for their shareholders.
So what does this all mean? We cannot use all debt because a bad month ruins the company. We cannot use all equity because we give away the entire farm, and our hurdle rate becomes impossibly high.
Right, and the climax of the CFA corporate finance lesson is the search for the optimal capital structure.
The Holy Grail.
This is the holy grail of corporate management.
You are looking for the exact, precise percentage of debt and equity that perfectly balances the scales.
It is the specific mix that maximizes the overall value of the company while pushing the WACC, that hurdle rate, to its absolute lowest mathematical point.
So you want just enough cheap debt to keep your funding costs down, but enough safe equity to absorb the shock if the market turns against you.
Finding that optimal point means you can confidently take on more projects because your hurdle rate is lower. And you can do it without lying awake at night worrying that a single missed loan payment will trigger a total collapse.
That's the dream.
Our source notes from Jeff and Pearl sum up the philosophy beautifully. They state, it's all about balance, just like life.
The highly rigorous math of the CFA curriculum is ultimately just a structured method for achieving stability in an unpredictable environment.
Pretty much.
Let's bring this all back to you listening right now. We have taken this tour through institutional corporate finance, and extracted a mental toolkit you can use in your own world. The next time you are faced with a major decision, maybe a large purchase or a career pivot, try applying these frameworks. First, run the worth it filter. Calculate the net present value.
Right.
Are the future benefits of this choice genuinely worth more than the initial outlay today? Keeping in mind the time value of money.
And remember, if the NPV is negative, walk away.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Second, examine where your capital is coming from. What is the actual blended price tag of the resources you are using?
Which, this raises an important question, one that pushes the source material's premise to its logical conclusion.
Oh.
Yeah, if a corporation's capital structure is a deliberate recipe of debt and equity, what does your personal capital structure look like?
Oh, wow. How are we funding our own life choices?
Think about how you pursue your goals. Debt, in a personal sense, is usually pretty easy to identify.
Right, like taking out a student loan or a mortgage.
Yeah. It accelerates your progress, but it introduces rigid obligations you have to meet no matter what happens to your income.
That monthly payment is always there.
Always. Personal equity, however, is about giving up future upside or control.
Okay, so if you take a safe salaried job instead of starting your own business, you are essentially relying on equity.
Exactly.
You don't have the risk of bankruptcy, but you are giving away the massive future upside of your labor to an employer.
Or consider taking a down payment for a house from a wealthy relative who now expects to dictate where you live and how you decorate.
Oh, I know people in that exact situation.
Right. You avoided the rigid bank loan, but you gave up a piece of your independence. You diluted your ownership of your own life decisions.
So the question for you is, are you finding the optimal balance of these resources to keep your personal cost of capital as low as possible while retaining the maximum value of your own future?
Because finding that balance is really the only way to build a sustainable life structure.
The hidden logic of the corporate balance sheet, applying directly to how we navigate our own choices. Fascinating stuff. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep searching for that structural logic in the decisions you make every day. We will catch you on the next one.